Arizona Territory, 1878. Elijah Cross stumbled through the burning ruins of the relay station, blood pouring down his arm as he dragged the barely breathing Apache girl against his chest. Behind them, gunmen shouted orders, boots pounding closer, rifles already raised to finish what they started. Tala's fingers trembled against his shirt, her whisper thin as ash. "Don't let them take me back." The flames roared higher, cutting off every escape except the one path that would almost certainly get them both killed. In Elijah's mind, one thought stabbed deeper than any bullet. If I fail her, I'll die the same man I've always hated being. Before we continue, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, leave your city name in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The piano in the border saloon had given up sometime last winter, so the only music left was the clink of glasses and the low growl of men trying to forget their names. Elijah Cross sat alone at a scarred corner table, hat low, fingers wrapped around a glass of whiskey that had stopped burning his throat 3 refills ago. The lamplight caught the dark skin of his hands, the old white lines of a few forgotten scars, and the faint shake he tried to hide every time someone laughed too loud behind him. He hated that shake. It made him remember nights when the sky had been full of cannon flashes instead of stars. The batwing doors creaked, and a gust of hot, dusty air slid into the room. Elijah didn't look up. You learned not to flinch every time a door opened. You learned to keep your back to a wall and your right hand close to iron. That was how a man got to see another sunrise in places like this. Bootsteps crossed the floor, slow and easy, like they already owned the space. Elijah Cross. The voice was smooth and amused, with that little edge of cruelty men got when they'd lived too long off other people's fear. Elijah didn't have to look to know who it was. There weren't many men in the territory who said his name like that. "Wade," he said, lifting the glass. "You're still alive. Lot of folks in Yuma gonna be disappointed." Wade Turner slid into the chair opposite him without asking, coat open just enough to show the revolver riding his hip. Dust clung to his blonde stubble and the lines at the corners of his eyes. He smiled like a preacher about to pass the plate. "Disappointment keeps 'em coming back," Wade said. "Besides, world'd be a dull place without me." Elijah's mouth twitched. "That's one word for it." Wade didn't waste more time. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded sheet, thick paper mottled with sweat and dust. Elijah's stomach tightened before his mind even knew why. Too many years of orders delivered like that. Too many nights when a piece of paper meant someone else wasn't going to see their family again. Wade flattened the sheet on the table between them, pinning one corner with a silver coin. There was no name at the top, just a few lines in a stiff, official hand. "Apache Scout," Wade read, tapping the words. "Female, wounded, dangerous. Last seen 3 days south of Fort Calder, heading for the high country." Elijah's eyes traced the letters slowly. Apache Scout. Female. Wounded. "How much?" he asked, voice flat. Wade smiled wider. "Enough to straighten out whatever trail you've knotted yourself into. Half now, half when we bring her in. The Army's nervous. Says she's carrying something that doesn't belong to her. Army gets nervous easy, Elijah said. He tried to sound bored, tried to ignore the way the word Apache dug under his ribs like a splinter. They say what she took? Didn't ask, Wade said. Didn't care. Not my job to read. My job's to ride where the money points. That's where you come in, Cross. You always did have a nose for tracks, even back when you wore their colors. That last part landed like a slap. Elijah's jaw tightened. He had worn those colors once. Dark blue wool that turned black in the rain, brass buttons that shone like something to be proud of. Buffalo Soldier, they called him. Hero on a poster, monster in the whispered stories of the people he'd been ordered to ride against. He picked up the paper. Read the line again. Female. Wounded. Funny, Elijah said quietly. Posting a bounty on a wounded woman. Must be something real important in those hands of hers. Important ain't the same as right, Wade shrugged. Besides, she's Apache. You know how they talk about 'em up at the fort. Hostiles. Savages. All that noise. Elijah's grip tightened on the paper until it creased. He remembered other words. Ones shouted over gunfire. Ones whispered over bodies cooling in the dirt. He cleared his throat. Why me? You've got men. Boys who think shooting's just another card game they can't lose. Wade chuckled. Because those boys don't know this land like you do. They don't know how to read broken brush or a scuffed rock from a mile off. And they sure as hell don't know how an Apache thinks when she's running scared. You do. You've chased 'em. You've fought 'em. You show me the way, I handle the rest. Easy work, Cross. In and out. Easy. Nothing about the way Elijah's chest felt was easy. He could say no. He could push back from the table, walk out, find some other nowhere town to disappear into. But the coins on the wood were heavy, and the little pouch tucked inside his coat was almost empty. A horse needed feed. A man needed food. Whiskey didn't buy itself. He hated how simple it was. Wade watched him, eyes sharp. You look tired, Elijah. Tired of cheap rooms and cheaper drink. This is one ride, one scout. Then you can vanish again, if that's still what you're set on doing. Elijah stared at the smear of ink that stood in for a human being. Apache scout. Female. Wounded. A small, treacherous part of him whispered that maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was some hardened fighter who'd slit his throat if he didn't get there first. Maybe this was justice. Maybe. Another voice, quieter, older, said it didn't matter who she was. Wounded was wounded. He had seen too many bodies that couldn't run. He folded the paper carefully and slid it into his pocket. The silver clinked as Wade pushed the first half of the payment toward him. Elijah hesitated a heartbeat, then scooped the coins into his palm. They felt colder than they should have. Where do we meet? He asked. Old Cottonwood outside Calder, Wade said. 2 days. You ride ahead, pick up her trail, we follow your lead. Don't get sentimental out there. She ain't one of your ghosts. She's just a job. Elijah stood, chair scraping back, the room wobbling for just a second, as whiskey and memory tangled in his head. He settled his hat low on his brow. "Every ghost started as somebody's job," he said quietly. Wade laughed, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes Elijah couldn't quite name. "Just don't let this one be yours, Cross. See you under that tree." Outside, the air hit him like a furnace. The street was little more than a strip of packed dirt between tired buildings. A dog nosed through trash. A woman swept a stoop that would never really be clean. Elijah untied his horse from the hitching post, running a slow hand down its neck. The animal flicked an ear back at him, patient, trusting the way only something that didn't know better could be. "Yeah," he murmured. "We're going back out there." He swung into the saddle, the motion easy from long habit, and turned the horse toward the open land. The town fell away behind him in a matter of minutes, swallowed by heat and distance. Ahead, the desert stretched out in ripples of gold and red, beautiful in the way a loaded gun was beautiful. He told himself it was just another trail. The weight of the folded paper against his chest said otherwise. Elijah rode hard until the town was nothing but a smear behind him. The desert swallowed sound, the way a grieving woman swallowed breath. Quiet, hungry, merciless. He followed the direction Wade had given, though every step made the coins in his pocket feel heavier. Like he'd pocketed a mistake he couldn't take back. He didn't find tracks at first, just sand, heat, and the echo of old regrets marching behind his horse. But 2 hours past midday, something changed. A buzzard circled low. His horse flicked an ear, uneasy. Elijah slowed, scanning the ground. A smear of darker sand caught his eye. He slid off the saddle, crouched, pressed 2 fingers against the patch. Blood. Fresh within a day. He followed the trail, drag marks, a staggered footprint, and a second print that barely existed at all, like someone walking on a leg that no longer wanted to hold them. Whoever she was, she'd been hurting bad. His pulse picked up. Not excitement, not fear. Something complicated, heavy as a church bell. 100 yards later, he saw her. A small figure collapsed in the sand, half turned on her side, black hair tangled across her face. Her clothes were torn, dust-stained, the kind worn by Apache scouts. Leather worked tight to the body, handmade stitching, a knife sheath empty at her hip. Elijah approached slow, rifle in hand. He didn't aim it, just held it. Old habits, stitched too deep to tear out in one day. "Ma'am?" he said softly. No answer. He moved closer, boots crunching. Heat rolled off the sand in shimmering waves, and for a moment he wondered if the desert was fooling him, showing him one more ghost. But then she stirred. Barely. Fingers twitching in the dirt. Her eyelids fluttered open, dark eyes focusing on his shape with a sharpness that cut through the haze. She saw the rifle, then his coat, the faded blue wool still clinging to the shoulders, a relic he kept only because it was the warmest thing he owned. Her voice came out cracked, barely air. "Soldier." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Elijah flinched, Not anymore. Her gaze said she didn't believe him, didn't care to. He knelt beside her, checking for other wounds. There were bruises on her arms, dust ground into her palms, and a hole torn through the side of her leg. Clean entry, messy exit. Bullet wound. Too high to be fatal by itself, too low to miss an artery by much. "How long you been running?" he murmured. She didn't answer, but her breath hitched when he touched the skin around the wound. She tried to push herself up, but her arm gave out beneath her. "Easy," he said, raising a hand in peace. "I ain't gonna hurt you." Her eyes flicked to the rifle again. "Not with that neither," he added, setting the gun down beside him where she could see it. "You got my word." Her brows knit, suspicious, but the pain in her leg kept her from moving. Elijah hesitated. This was the moment every bounty hunter lived for. The confirmation, the prize, the clean route to coin and safety. All he had to do was haul her onto the saddle, get her breathing enough to survive the ride, and bring her to Wade. He could almost hear Wade's voice. "Don't get sentimental." But sentiment was already chewing through his chest. "What's your name?" he asked. She stared at him long enough he thought she wouldn't answer, then whispered, "Tala." Pretty name. Soft in a world that wasn't. "I'm Elijah Cross," he said. You here to take me?" Her fingers found the sand, clutching it. "Just do it." That hit him harder than a fist. "Listen," he said quietly. "I ain't here to—" He stopped. Because what was he here for? Money? Orders? Habit? None of it tasted right in his mouth. He tried again. "You're hurt. That's the only thing that matters right now." Her jaw tightened. "You killed my people." Elijah swallowed once, feeling the truth burn slow. "Maybe men wearing the same colors I once did, but I ain't here to finish that work." She didn't close her eyes, but something in them dimmed. Exhaustion or grief, he couldn't tell. He gently slid one arm beneath her shoulders. She stiffened, but there was no strength left to fight him. "You're gonna pass out soon," he murmured. "I'd rather you do it on a horse than in the dirt." Her voice rasped against his ear. "Why help me?" Elijah held her a little tighter, though he didn't know why. "Because I've stood by once before when I shouldn't have, and I've been paying for it ever since." Her breath trembled against his chest. He lifted her carefully, surprised by how light she was. Light like someone who'd been carrying too much weight for too long. When he set her across the saddle, she grabbed a fistful of his coat, more reflex than trust. "Elijah," she whispered, eyes barely open. "They're coming." He didn't ask who. He didn't need to. He looked at the burning horizon. The desert wasn't quiet anymore. Boots, hooves, dust. Wade Turner wasn't far behind. Elijah swung into the saddle behind Tala, one arm bracing her so she wouldn't slide off. Her breath warmed the front of his shirt, uneven, trembling, fading in and out like someone trying not to die too loudly. The horse shifted beneath them, sensing urgency long before Elijah gave the signal. He clicked his tongue, ready to ride straight toward the cottonwood meeting point. Then he heard it. Hoofbeats. Not single. Not double. Too many to count at a quick listen. A scattered rhythm at first, then tightening, falling into a pattern he recognized from the worst nights of his past. Men sweeping an area. Men hunting. Tala stirred weakly. Them, she whispered. Elijah muttered a curse under his breath. Wade Turner wasn't supposed to be here yet. He'd said 2 days. Elijah had counted the hours carefully. Unless Wade had lied. Unless this was never about patience or planning. Just about getting to her first. Elijah looked down at her face. Dust streaked. Blood dried at the edge of her mouth. But her eyes, half-lidded as they were, held something sharp behind the haze. Not fear. Just the same resigned anger he'd seen in soldiers too wounded to run, waiting for the wrong set of footsteps to decide their fate. He hated that look more than anything. Hold on, he murmured. He nudged the horse forward, heading east, the direction Wade expected him to go. The hoofbeats grew louder, closer. Someone shouted across the open desert. Elijah couldn't make out the words, but he recognized Wade's voice anywhere. Cheerful. Too damn cheerful for a man closing in on someone half dead. Tala tightened her fingers around his shirt. No strength in the grip, but enough fear to speak through it. Don't. Let them take me. Elijah exhaled slowly, jaw tight. I didn't plan on it. He could ride toward the meeting point, hand her over, pretend nothing strange had happened. He'd get his money. He'd stay alive. He'd drink enough whiskey to forget the way she looked right now. But some part of him, the part he tried to bury with whiskey and silence, already knew that wasn't happening. He saw shadows cresting a rise to the west. 5, 6 riders, maybe more. Dust billowed around them like a storm cloud. They'd spotted him. Tala's head slumped against his chest. Please, she rasped. That one word broke something open in him. Something he'd tried to weld shut years ago. He jerked the reins hard to the left. The horse reared slightly, surprised, then lunged in the new direction, north, toward a line of broken rock shelves no hired gun would willingly chase into. Too narrow, too steep, too unpredictable. Perfect. Behind him, Wade's voice rose. Cross, you going the wrong damn way. Elijah didn't look back. Not today, he muttered. Tala blinked up at him. Why are you running from them? I ain't running, he said. I'm taking a different path. It wasn't a real answer, but she didn't have the strength to question it. Another shout rang out. A gunshot cracked through open air. The horse jolted, nearly throwing them both, but Elijah held tight, urging it faster. He felt Tala flinch. They'll kill you, she breathed. Yeah, he said, voice low. Maybe, but I ain't handing you over. More shouts, more gunfire, wild and distant. The men likely weren't aiming to kill yet. Wade would want the bounty alive, but they wanted Elijah cornered. Well, he'd been cornered before. He'd lived through worse men than Wade Turner. He'd lived through officers who used maps and orders like weapons. He'd lived through seeing things he couldn't forget. He wasn't sure he'd live through making the same mistake twice. Elijah urged the horse harder, pushing it into a narrow cut between two massive slabs of rock. Stones scraped the stirrup. Tala groaned at the sudden jolt, gripping whatever she could catch, mostly him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you helping?" He didn't answer immediately. His throat tightened around the truth, because he saw too much of the past in her eyes, because she was wounded, because she was alone, because he knew exactly what Wade would do with her, because he was tired of being the man who did nothing when everything was wrong. Finally, he said, "Because you don't deserve what's comin' behind us." Her eyes softened a fraction, as if the words didn't make sense but still touched something fragile inside her. Behind them, the riders tried to follow and cursed loud enough for the canyon to throw their frustration back at them. The path was too narrow for more than one horse, too steep for anyone but a rider who grew up reading broken country like scripture. Elijah didn't grow up here, but he'd learned enough from men who had. "Cross," Wade's voice echoed against the stone. "You're throwing away good money." Elijah shouted back, "Keep it!" Another gunshot ricocheted off rock, too close. The horse stumbled, caught itself. Elijah wrapped both arms around Tala to keep her steady. She gasped in pain, nails digging into his coat. "Almost there," he whispered. He didn't know where there was, only that it wasn't with Wade. And it wasn't the kind of place where a dying woman became someone's paycheck. He pushed them deeper into the broken land, siding with the only instinct that still felt human inside him, the instinct to protect what couldn't protect itself. Behind them, Wade swore loud enough to rattle stone. Elijah didn't slow. He'd made his choice. Elijah didn't stop until the horse's sides heaved and Tala's head lolled dangerously. The narrow pass widened into a shallow pocket carved into the rock, barely big enough for one man and a wounded stranger. But it was shade, and it was hidden. That was all he needed. He reined in, slid off the saddle, and caught Tala before she could fall. "Easy now," he murmured, lowering her to a patch of firm ground. "I got you." Her lips pressed together in pain. She tried to sit up on her own, stubborn, even half dead. Elijah guided her back down gently. "You don't have to be tough with me," he said. She shot him a glare that could have cut stone. "I do, you're looking to take me in." "I was," he admitted. "Ain't now." She didn't believe that. He saw it in the shake of her head, the confusion in her eyes, the instinctive fear of someone who'd learned long ago that a helping hand always came with a trap hidden in the palm. Elijah dropped to one knee beside her. "Let me see the leg." "No." "You're bleeding through the whole damn desert," he said. "You keep refusing. You won't need me or Wade or anybody else. The fever's gonna take you first." She hesitated. Pain flickered across her face like lightning, fast, bright, impossible to hide. She didn't let go of her small leather bag, though, arm wrapped over it protectively even as her breath shook. Elijah met her eyes. "I ain't touching your things, Tala. Just your leg." At the sound of her name from his mouth, something flickered. Uncertainty, maybe. Or exhaustion winning its fight. She relented just enough for him to lift the torn fabric and inspect the wound. The sight hit him like a fist. "Damn," he whispered. The bullet had gone clean through the side of her thigh, but the edges were angry, swollen, dust ground in from crawling. Infection wasn't coming. It was already there, knocking hard. He pulled his knife, sliced a long strip from his own shirt, and began cleaning the blood away with water from his canteen. Tala jerked back, gasping. "Don't!" "I know it hurts," Elijah said softly, "but I'm not trying to hurt you." "You were a soldier," she hissed. "You rode with the ones who—" Elijah closed his eyes. The truth of that was a stone he carried deep, one he couldn't put down no matter how many years passed. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I was there for things I'm not proud of. So why help me now?" He tied the first layer of bandage firm. "Because I should have helped sooner. In another place, another time. I didn't. I've been living with that mistake ever since." Her breathing hitched. Not belief, but the beginning of listening. While he worked, she clutched her leather bag tighter, keeping it pinned against her chest. Elijah noticed the way she protected it, as if it mattered more than her own life. "What's in there?" he asked gently. Her eyes snapped open, sharp again. "Nothing you need." "Didn't say I needed it." She didn't answer. He reached for another strip of cloth. When he leaned forward, his fingers brushed the edge of the leather bag by accident. It shifted, the flap opening just a hair, just enough for a rolled parchment and the corner of a drawn map to slide into view. Tala grabbed the bag instantly, pulling it away from him with more strength than she should have had. Her voice came out as a growl. "Don't!" Elijah raised both palms. "All right. I won't touch it." Her chest rose and fell quickly, pain and fear tangled together. She watched him closely, as if expecting betrayal at any moment. "I ain't taking your things," he repeated. "Or you. Not to Wade. Not to anyone." "You say that now," she whispered. "Yeah," he admitted. "Now's all I got." For a long moment, neither spoke. The desert hummed outside the little pocket of shade. Elijah finished wrapping her leg, tying off the last knot. "I'm done," he said quietly. "You'll need clean dressin' again soon. And water." "I can walk," she muttered, trying to push herself up. Her arms trembled. She made it halfway before the pain ripped through her, and she nearly collapsed. Elijah caught her shoulders before she could fall back hard. "You ain't walking anywhere yet," he said. "Heading out there on that leg'll get you killed faster than Wade will." Her eyes met his, dark, tired, burning with a fierce pride. "Then leave me," she said. "Let the desert take me. Better that than them." Elijah swallowed. "No." "Why not?" Her voice broke. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." He didn't answer right away. He couldn't. Because the truth was too simple, too raw. He cared because he'd spent too many years not caring soon enough. Instead, he said, Because Wade's not the only one hunting today. And you're out of luck, but not out of time. Not yet. She stared at him, searching for something. He didn't know what. Forgiveness? Trust? A reason to live? She found none. But she didn't push him away this time. Elijah stood, extended a hand toward her, not touching, just offering. Come on, we gotta move, they're close. Tala didn't take his hand, but she let him lift her. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it wasn't fear anymore either. Elijah slung Tala's arm over his shoulder and helped her hobble back to the horse. She tried to hide how much she leaned on him, but her breath faltered with every other step. The wound was worse than she wanted him to know, worse than he wanted to admit. When he lifted her onto the saddle, she grit her teeth, jaw hard enough to crack. Just go, she muttered. I'm trying. Elijah swung up behind her and took hold of the reins. But you gotta stay awake, Tala. Helps me feel like you ain't about to fall off and die on me. That bother you? She whispered. Yeah, he said softly. It does. He kicked the horse into motion, heading deeper into the maze of stone ridges. They moved quick at first, sharp turns keeping them out of view from anyone trying to follow. But even with adrenaline in its veins, Elijah felt the animal weakening beneath them, breath loud, hooves dragging. The gunfire behind them faded, but the danger didn't. Silence in the desert meant men were spreading out, trying to cut ahead. Hold on, he murmured into Tala's ear as the horse stumbled again. She didn't answer. He wasn't sure she heard him. Another mile, another turn, another shudder under the saddle. Elijah pulled back lightly on the reins. Come on, girl. Just a little farther. The horse didn't make it. With a strangled groan, the animal's legs buckled. Elijah barely had time to grab Tala before the horse collapsed sideways into the sand. He jumped off, catching her against his chest as the weight of the animal thudded beside them. Tala blinked, dazed. What? Elijah crouched beside the horse, one hand on its neck. The breath was there, but faint. She'd run herself empty trying to save them. Took her too far, he whispered, guilt dragging through him. Damn it. Tala stared at the fallen mare, understanding exactly what it meant. You should leave me, she said. Walk. You can still outrun them without me. The words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. Elijah stood, dust coating his boots. I ain't leaving you. You owe me nothing. Maybe not, he said, but I owe myself something. She frowned weakly. What? A chance to do one thing right. He moved to her side. Tala tried to push him away, but her arm slid off his chest like a leaf falling. She didn't have strength left for more than words. He knelt, slipped one arm under her knees, the other behind her back, and lifted her like she weighed no more than his bedroll. Her breath caught. Elijah, don't. You ain't walking, he said. Your leg wouldn't make it 10 steps. You'll be slower, she warned. I know. You'll die for nothing. Maybe not, he countered, 'cause you're something. Her eyes widened at that. surprise, disbelief, maybe even fear. But she didn't fight as he settled her across his back and rose to his feet. He staggered, once under the weight, more from exhaustion than mass, but steadied himself. Tala's voice was close to his ear, barely a breath. "You're a fool." He adjusted his hold on her. "Yeah, but I'm your fool today." As he started forward, her fingers curled instinctively into the collar of his shirt. She probably didn't even know she was doing it, but Elijah felt the faint tug like a promise he hadn't earned yet. Behind them, hoofbeats echoed faintly, men regrouping. "We gotta move," Elijah muttered. "They're coming fast." He pushed into a narrow incline where the ground rose unevenly. It forced him to brace with each step, muscles burning, lungs clawing for air. After a few minutes, Tala spoke softly. "Why are you really carrying me?" "'Cause you're dying," he said simply, "and I don't like watching people die." "That didn't stop you before," she whispered. The words struck deeper than any bullet. Elijah didn't answer. He couldn't, not with the truth choking him. He just tightened his grip on her legs. "Not this time." Her breath hitched. He felt her forehead press lightly against the back of his neck. Whether from weakness or instinct, he didn't know. But the contact steadied him, gave him something to anchor to. He trudged forward, sweat dripping, the heat pressing like a giant hand. Each step felt like a choice he'd have to remake again and again. Tala shifted slightly. "Why are you afraid?" Elijah huffed. "Who says I'm afraid?" "I hear it," she murmured. "In your chest." He didn't deny it. "Afraid," he said slowly, "that I was always the wrong kind of man. That maybe the only good thing I'll ever do is get you out of this alive." Silence. Then Tala whispered, "If you were the wrong kind, you'd have sold me already." The words lit something small and aching in his chest. He kept walking. When the sound of shifting gravel echoed behind them, closer now, Elijah hoisted her higher on his back, breath burning, heart hammering. "Hold tight," he said. "Trouble's right on our heels." And with Tala clinging to him, half conscious, half trusting, he pushed toward the only path left. Forward. Elijah's boots scraped against stone as he pushed deeper into the narrow cut in the canyon wall. Tala's breath warmed the back of his neck. Shallow, erratic. The kind of breathing that scared him more than any gun pointed his way. He shifted her weight, tightening his hold. "You still with me?" he asked, voice low and breathless. A faint hum came from her throat. Maybe yes, maybe no. But she heard him. Behind them, the echo of voices bounced off rock, the sound twisting in the canyon until he couldn't tell how many men there were, only that they were close. Too close. Elijah spotted a split in the stone ahead, a tight alcove behind a chunk of angled rock. It wasn't safety, but it was cover. He carried Tala into the pocket of shadow and set her down gently. She sagged against the rock, eyes half open, sweat glistening on her skin. "Elijah," her voice cracked. "I know," he whispered. "I know they're coming. I ain't leaving you." Her fingers weakly closed around the leather bag she kept pressed to her chest, as if even death couldn't pry it from her hands. Elijah pulled his revolver and checked the chamber. 5 rounds. He wished it were more. He wished he were a better man. One with a plan that didn't involve improvising death traps in God-forsaken canyons. But here they were. He knelt in front of her, placed the small knife handle first into her palm. If someone gets past me, Tala shook her head, panic rising. No, I can't. You can, he said firmly, curling her fingers around the hilt. If someone grabs you, you stab 'em. Don't think. Don't hesitate, just do it. Her lower lip trembled. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't fight for me. Elijah held her gaze, steady and earnest. Maybe. But I am. This is where I choose to be. Footsteps clattered against loose gravel above them. Elijah braced himself. Stay low. He stepped out of the alcove and flattened himself behind a jut of stone. The canyon narrowed ahead, perfect for funneling attackers, terrible for retreat. But he didn't need to retreat. He just needed a chance. A shadow crossed high on the ledge. Elijah Cross, a voice called. You making this real damn difficult. Wade. Elijah swallowed hard, heart hammering. Wade was smart, efficient, and angry men like him didn't waste breath. They fired first. Talk later, or never. A second voice said, Tracks go this way. Not good. Elijah breathed once, slow and controlled. You got 5 bullets. Make 'em count. He didn't wait for them to find the alcove. He stepped out and fired upward, aiming for the ledge, not the man. The bullet struck stone inches from a boot. The rider hissed, startled. Ambush! Someone yelled. Elijah ducked back behind cover as shots rained down, ricocheting in shards of rock. Tala gasped, curling her body inward, clutching the knife tighter. Another voice shouted, Flank left! Elijah leaned, out, fired again, this time at a rider trying to descend. The shot hit the man's shoulder, knocking him back into his horse. The animal reared, screaming, collapsing sideways into another rider. Both went tumbling down the slope. Chaos spread. Men cursed. Horses panicked. Dust clouded the narrow space. It bought Elijah seconds, nothing more. He positioned himself between the attackers and Tala's hiding place, back pressed to the stone, breath ragged. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the familiar weight of choice. A man charged through the dust with a raised revolver. Elijah didn't think. He fired from the hip. The man dropped. And that, shooting a man not out of duty or orders but out of raw, desperate protection, hit Elijah harder than recoil ever had. His breath caught, shaking, not killing in uniform, not killing because officers pointed him at a target. This time, killing because someone he was protecting needed him alive. God forgive me, he thought, but I'd do it again. Above them, Wade shouted, Cross! You ain't walking out of here unless you hand her over. Elijah shouted back, Come get her! You think we won't? Wade barked. Elijah didn't answer. He didn't need to, because at that moment, another attacker vaulted the ledge and slid down toward Tala's alcove, knife in hand, eyes fixed on her. Tala screamed, scrambling back, her injured leg dragging helplessly. Elijah's pulse snapped tight. No! He sprinted across the canyon floor, boots skidding on loose stone. The man reached the alcove first, ripping the hide flap aside, grabbing Tala's arm, and Elijah fired point blank. The man fell sideways, fingers slipping from Tala's wrist. She stared at Elijah, shock etched across her face. Not fear of him, but fear of how close she'd come to disappearing into the dark forever. Elijah knelt beside her, chest heaving. You all right? Her voice trembled. You killed him. For me. Elijah met her gaze, raw and unguarded. I ain't letting anyone take you. Not while I'm breathing. The canyon went quiet. No gunfire. No shouting. Just the heavy silence of men regrouping somewhere out of sight. Tala's hand reached for him. Not holding, just touching his sleeve. Why? She whispered. He didn't know how to answer without telling the whole ugly truth, so he gave her the part he could live with. Because you deserve someone on your side, he said. Even if that someone's a broken man, trying to make something right for once. Behind them, the echo of regrouping horses signaled one thing. This fight wasn't close to over, and Elijah, shaking, bleeding, outnumbered, stood his ground anyway. Elijah kept his revolver raised, listening to the canyon breathe. The horses had quieted. The voices had gone low. That silence was worse than gunfire. Men only got quiet when they had a plan. Tala leaned back against the rock, clutching her knife with trembling fingers. Her eyes flicked toward the canyon mouth, fear flaring every time gravel shifted. Elijah, she whispered. They're regrouping. I know. He reloaded with shaking hands, thumb scraping brass. We ain't done yet. Before she could answer, a clearer voice cut across the canyon, calm, commanding, familiar in a way that made Elijah's stomach knot. Elijah Cross! The voice echoed down the stone corridors like someone calling a lost brother home. Tala's eyes widened. You know that voice. Elijah exhaled slowly. Pain bloomed under his ribs, not from bullets. This hurt came from memory. Yeah, he said bitterly. I know him. Boots scraped somewhere above them. Then a figure stepped into view at the canyon ridge. A tall black man in a military coat, polished brass shining even in the weak light. His hat shadowed his eyes, but Elijah could still see the stern, familiar shape of his face. Isaiah Cole, Elijah's old friend, his closest brother in arms. The man he trusted with his life in the worst years of the frontier wars. Isaiah stood tall, surveying the canyon floor. Cross, he called. You picked one hell of a place to make trouble. Elijah stepped out far enough to be seen, gun down at his side but ready. Didn't know you'd be here, Isaiah. Isaiah's expression didn't soften. Captain Pierce sent word. Said one of his men turned traitor. I didn't believe him. His voice dipped. But here you are. Tala froze, whispering, "Soldiers." "Yeah," Elijah muttered, "and not the kind who ask questions first." Isaiah's gaze sharpened when he spotted Tala hunched in the alcove. "That her?" Elijah moved instinctively to block his view. "She's none of your business." Isaiah's voice hardened. "She's Apache. She shot one of Pierce's men during a negotiation." "That ain't what happened," Elijah shot back. "You're taking her word over your own units?" Isaiah barked. Elijah's jaw tightened. "I'm taking the truth over a damn lie." Silence fell. Heavy. Choking. Then Isaiah sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Cross, listen to me. You're in over your head. I've been in deeper. I ain't joking." Isaiah crouched at the ridge, staring down with genuine worry. "Just hand her over. Captain Pierce said he can fix this. They'll reinstate you. You'll get your pension back. You'll live, Elijah. Just stop right now." Tala stiffened behind him. Elijah didn't turn. "Say that again." "You heard me." Isaiah's voice softened. "We can protect you. But the girl goes back with Wade and the captain. That's the deal." Elijah laughed hollowly. "Ain't much of a deal." "It's better than dying down there," Isaiah snapped. "You can't carry her forever. You know that. Let us handle this." Tala's voice came out as a shaky whisper behind Elijah. "He wants to give me back to them." Elijah didn't move. "Yeah, seems so." Isaiah shifted, boots grinding on gravel. "Cross, don't be stupid. You were a damn good soldier. Pierce likes loyalty. Show him some now, and he'll show it back." Elijah finally looked up at Isaiah, the man he once shared campfires and rations with, the man who pulled him out of ambushes and prayed for him on nights Elijah didn't believe in anything at all. "Isaiah," Elijah said softly, "loyalty's what got us used." Isaiah went still. Elijah continued, voice steady. "You remember Red Mesa? You remember those orders? We went in thinking we were protecting settlers. But we were cleaning out a tribe that just wanted to move their camp." Isaiah's jaw clenched. "Don't bring that up." "You know damn well Pierce lied then," Elijah said. "And he's lying now." "Even if he is," Isaiah said, voice cracking, "it ain't our call. We follow the chain of command. That's how we stay alive." Elijah shook his head slowly. "No, Isaiah. That's how we stay dead on the inside." Tala watched the exchange with wide eyes. Confusion, dread, and something else Elijah didn't have time to name. Isaiah slammed a fist into the rock. "Damn it, Cross! I'm trying to save you." "You want to save me?" Elijah asked quietly. "Walk away. Let us go." Isaiah's breath caught. "Can't do that," he whispered. Elijah lifted his revolver just enough to show he was serious. "Then don't come closer." The canyon shifted again, wind tugging at loose stone, the distant groan of horses restless on the ridge. Isaiah's voice dropped to something almost broken. "You ain't him anymore, Elijah. You ain't the man I fought beside." Elijah's throat tightened. "Maybe that's good. Maybe that man needed to die." Isaiah stepped back, expression torn between duty and grief. Pierce is comin' with the rest. You got minutes. Make your peace. He disappeared from the ridge. Tala exhaled shakily. Elijah, your own friend. I know. He holstered his gun with a trembling hand. Isaiah thinks he's doin' right. I thought so once, too. Voices rose in the distance, strong, organized, countless. Elijah looked back at Tala. We gotta move again. But you're hurt, she whispered. We're both hurt. Elijah reached down, offering his hand. But we ain't done fightin'. And with soldiers gathering above them and shadows closing in from every side, Elijah made the only choice that still felt human. He chose her. Elijah half-carried, half-guided Tala along the canyon wall until they reached a slope leading toward open ground. His shoulder burned where the last skirmish had scraped him raw, but he didn't mention it. Tala already looked at him like he was holding himself together with nothing but stubbornness. When the canyon spit them out into the flats, Elijah scanned the horizon. No riders in sight, yet, but dust in the far distance shimmered with movement. Come on. His voice was low. There's an old relay station a mile out. We can patch up there. Tala leaned heavier against him than she wanted to admit. Relay station. Burned? You know it? Her breath hitched. Everyone does. Place where they promised peace, then opened fire. Elijah's heart sank like a stone. He remembered hearing about the peace fire. He just hadn't known the place, hadn't known who had been inside. He didn't say a damn thing as they made the slow walk toward the blackened ruins. The building rose from the earth like the ribs of a dead beast. Charred timbers, collapsed roofing, the faint smell of old ash baked into wood. Even after all this time, the air carried a sour memory of smoke. Tala stopped short, shaking. This is where they killed my father. Elijah's breath stung in his lungs. You sure? Yes. Her voice cracked, but anger pushed through it. I saw the flames from the ridge. I ran. My father said he'd follow. Her throat closed. He never made it out. Elijah didn't touch her. He didn't deserve to, but he stood close. Tala, he said gently, we don't have long. Let's get you inside. She nodded stiffly and let him guide her. They slipped into the shell of the building, dust crunching underfoot. A collapsed support beam blocked half the interior, but there was enough room for them to sit behind what remained of a scorched counter. Tala sank down carefully, clutching her leather bag against her chest. Elijah crouched in front of her, checking the bandage he'd wrapped earlier. It's holdin', he murmured. But the fever's creepin' in. She wiped sweat from her brow. I've survived worse. You ain't gotta pretend. Her eyes flashed. I ain't pretendin'. I'm angry. Angry you brought me here. Elijah stiffened. This place was the closest shelter. This place, she hissed, is where your people killed mine. That froze him. Not your uniform, not your officers. Your people. He deserved it. every word. Tala, he swallowed hard. I didn't know this was the station your father. Did you fight here? She snapped. He looked away. That small gesture was all the answer she needed. Her breathing turned ragged. You were here. Tala, you watched them burn. I didn't, Elijah whispered. I wasn't inside. But you were one of them. Her voice shook with pure betrayal. You stood with them. Elijah forced himself to meet her eyes even as shame scorched through him. I didn't shoot. I didn't set it on fire. But I stood in the line, and I didn't stop it. She pressed a trembling hand over her mouth. You're no different than Wade. He flinched like she'd slapped him. I ain't proud of what I was, he said softly. I ain't proud I listened to orders instead of my gut. But I ain't that man anymore. You expect me to believe that? She whispered. No. Elijah sat back on his heels. I expect to earn it. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. Apache warriors didn't cry easy, and Tala had learned to hold pain the same way she held a knife. Tight, hidden, ready to strike. She turned away from him, laying her head against the charred wall. Just leave me here. This is where they ended my family. Maybe it's where mine ends too. Elijah's voice broke, thick with something deeper than guilt. Tala, don't say that. She didn't answer. He stood, walked toward the doorway, meaning to give her space, meaning to breathe before the weight crushed him. Then the ground vibrated under his boots. Men, horses, close. Elijah's stomach turned cold. He stepped back inside. They're coming. We don't have time to leave, she said flatly. He stared at her, broken, feverish, surrounded by ghosts, and something inside him snapped. No. She looked up sharply. I ain't leaving you, he said. Not here, not like this. You want me gone after this is over? Fine. But I will not walk out and let them take you. I won't repeat my mistakes. Tala opened her mouth to speak, but the rumble outside grew louder. Gravel shifting, orders barked, metal clinking. Elijah grabbed his revolver, checked the last of his ammo. I'll hold 'em off as long as I can. You stay down. If they break through... I know, she whispered, lifting the knife he'd given her earlier. Their eyes met. Not trust, not forgiveness, but something raw. Two people caught between griefs neither asked for. And then the first silhouette passed across the doorway. Elijah stepped forward. He didn't know if he'd survive. He didn't know if this place would become his grave too. But he knew one thing. He wouldn't fail her again. Elijah positioned himself just inside the burned doorway, revolver raised, breath sharp and controlled. Tala stayed crouched behind the collapsed counter, clutching her knife and leather bag like lifelines. The sound of boots and horses shifting outside tightened the air. Then Wade Turner's voice cracked through the smoke-stained walls. Cross! You got one chance to walk out alive. Elijah glanced at Tala. Her eyes were distant, haunted and furious. Elijah, go, she whispered. This is where we end. Not you. He shook his head. Ain't happenin'. Before she could argue, a footstep crunched too close outside. Elijah aimed, ready, but the figure who stepped into view wasn't Wade. It was Isaiah. He stood framed by the broken doorway, rifle lowered but not slung, eyes heavy with conflict. Elijah, he said quietly, you ain't gotta die here. Elijah didn't lower his gun. Move aside, Isaiah. You know I can't. Then don't ask me to drop my weapon. Isaiah exhaled, shoulders slumping. Cross. You think they'll let that girl live? Turner ain't taken her to trial. Pierce already wrote the report. They're calling her a hostile scout who ambushed us. Bringing her in alive just makes her a stage prop for whatever lie the captain wants to tell. Tala stiffened behind Elijah, jaw clenched. And you're okay with that? Elijah demanded. Isaiah flinched. I'm okay with staying alive. I'm okay with following orders. That's how I've survived this long. That ain't survivin', Elijah snapped. That's dying slow. Wade yelled from outside, irritated. Isaiah, either drag Cross out or get out of the way. Isaiah hesitated. For a long moment, Elijah saw his old friend, the one who patched his wounds, shared his rations, prayed for him under cold night skies. Then Isaiah's voice dropped low. Let me take you in, Elijah. Just you. I'll tell Pierce you were coerced. Insane. Something. And her? Elijah asked. Isaiah's silence answered. Tala rasped behind him. Elijah, let him take you. Let him live. Let you live. He didn't turn. He couldn't. His jaw locked, voice shaking. I ain't leaving you. Not to them. Not after what they did here. Elijah, this is my family's grave, she choked. Then I ain't letting you be added to it. Outside, Wade snapped. Enough talk. Boots charged the entrance. Isaiah flinched. Elijah. Elijah reacted on instinct. He kicked the half-hinged door forward, sending it crashing into the first man entering. A gunshot rang out. Ricochet off burned beams. Shouts exploded through the air. Isaiah ducked back, yelling, Hold fire, damn it! But Wade's men weren't listening. Elijah fired once, twice, dropping a man lunging through the doorway. Another scrambled through a side gap, and Tala screamed as he grabbed for her ankle. Elijah spun, firing again. The man fell inches from her. Tala gasped, clutching her knife to her chest. Her breath came in sharp, pained bursts. You all right? He shouted. No, she whispered, but I'm alive. Boots thundered outside, more men rushing in. Elijah knew they wouldn't last minutes at this pace. Tala seemed to realize it too, and something in her snapped. Rage, grief, terror, all tangled. She ripped the leather bag from her chest and threw it at him. It hit Elijah in the chest and dropped into his hands. Take it! She cried, voice breaking. Take the evidence and run! Leave me! Elijah stared at the bag, feeling the weight of whatever truth Tala had been protecting. I ain't leaving without you. You must, she insisted. If they get this, My people die. If they get me, they'll twist the truth. But if you escape, I said no. Elijah's voice cracked like a whip. Silence punched through the space. Tala stared at him, shaking, furious, and terrified. Why? She demanded. Why won't you run? Why won't you save yourself? Elijah's throat tightened. He almost couldn't speak. Because if I walk out that door without you, Tala, I become the man I've never stopped hatin'. Her lips trembled. You're not responsible for my life. He stepped closer despite the shouts outside. Maybe not. But I'm responsible for what I choose today. Her eyes softened. Barely, but enough. Outside, the men regrouped, shouting orders. Isaiah's voice carried faintly, weakly. Elijah, don't do this. Elijah squeezed Tala's shoulder gently. I ain't letting you die here, but I will give you space. He backed away, settling against the opposite wall of the ruined station, gun raised. You stay behind that counter, he said. I'll take the bullets first. Her voice wavered. Elijah. He didn't turn his head. If they want you, they'll have to shoot me to get to you. That broke her. He heard it, in the tiny shaking breath she couldn't hide. Outside, the charge began. Inside, Elijah braced himself with a calm he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't fighting for orders. He wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for her. Elijah burst through the burned-out back wall with Tala in his arms, just as the relay station collapsed behind them in a roar of splintering wood and flames. Heat rolled across their backs like a living thing. Tala coughed violently, face buried against his chest. Hold on, he whispered, tightening his grip. I got you. His legs shook from blood loss and exhaustion, but he kept running, stumbling through sand and brush, following the faint trail along the canyon's edge that Tala had pointed out earlier. Behind them, angry shouts filled the night. The glow of torches bobbed closer. Elijah, Tala said weakly, stop. You'll fall. He didn't. Couldn't. Not with her breathing against him like that. Not with Wade's men howling for blood behind them. Not with every sin in his past screaming for a reckoning. Up ahead, shadows shifted, tall, silent figures emerging from the rocks. Elijah froze, muscles locking on instinct. Apache warriors, bows lifted, arrows aimed straight for his chest. Tala's fingers curled weakly in his shirt. Put me down, she rasped. Let me stand. Let them see me. Elijah lowered her carefully, but stayed in front of her, shielding her with his own body. One warrior stepped forward, eyes burning in the moonlight. Recognition flickered across his face as he saw Tala sagging against Elijah. Tala Nahasani, he said. We thought you dead. Tala forced herself upright. Where's my father? Before the warrior could answer, another sound cut across the desert. Bootsteps pounding hard and fast, rifles cocking. Isaiah's voice rang out. Elijah, that's far enough. Elijah stiffened. He pivoted slowly, keeping Tala behind him. Isaiah and half a dozen soldiers emerged from the darkness. Rifles aimed, torches blazing, dust swirling around booted feet, Isaiah looked torn, half relief, half fury. "You're outnumbered," he warned quietly. "Don't make us shoot you." Elijah's voice shook, but not with fear. "Ain't runnin' no more." The Apache warriors widened their formation and drew closer, bows raised. A deadly triangle formed. Apache on one side, soldiers on the other, Elijah and Tala trapped in the center. Tala touched his arm. "Elijah, let me speak." But Pierce's voice thundered from behind Isaiah before she could. "Enough!" Captain Harlan Pierce rode up on a bay horse, face stone hard, eyes filled with cold command. His uniform gleamed even in moonlight, pristine despite the pursuit. "You two," Pierce barked at the warriors, "step away from the prisoners. That girl is wanted for murder and inciting raids. The man with her is a deserter." Tala tried to speak. "Those are lies." "Elijah Cross," Pierce interrupted. "You hand her over right now, and I'll take your cooperation into account. You may even avoid the gallows." The words struck Elijah like a blow. He felt Tala flinch behind him. Isaiah closed his eyes in pain. Pierce raised his pistol, leveling it slowly, deliberately. "And if you don't," he said, "I'll drop you where you stand." Elijah stepped forward, blood soaking through his shirt. "You're not taking her," Pierce sneered. "You telling me you're willing to die for an Apache girl? A stranger? A target?" Elijah's answer came from a place deeper than fear, deeper even than regret. "She ain't a target." His voice cracked. "She's a person. And I ain't repeating the same damn sins I lived with." Tala's breath hitched, sharp, fragile, disbelieving. The Apache warrior beside them frowned, studying Elijah with new eyes. Pierce's jaw tightened. "You think this is noble?" "No," Elijah whispered. "Just necessary." The tension snapped like a drawn wire. Soldiers tightened their grips. Warriors drew arrows to cheek. Isaiah looked at Elijah with heartbreak. "Tala," Elijah murmured behind him. "Get behind the rocks. If shootin' starts—" "I'm not leaving you," she whispered fiercely. Elijah shook his head. "I ain't worth that." "You are," she insisted, voice quivering. Pierce's patience broke. "Enough!" He lifted his pistol higher. "This ends now." "Wait!" A deeper, older voice boomed from the rocks above. Chaitan Nahasani, Tala's father, stepped into moonlight. His braids swung like black ropes against a weathered chest. His bow was drawn, arrow aimed at Pierce's heart. "Any man who shoots," Chaitan growled, "dies first." Pierce jerked in surprise. Isaiah froze. The line of Apache warriors shifted, tightening, ready. Chaitan's gaze slid to Elijah. His voice held no warmth. "Why," he asked, "is my daughter standing behind you instead of with her people?" Elijah swallowed. "Because I'm the reason she's alive." Tala whispered, "He saved me, Father. Again and again." Pierce barked a bitter laugh. "That man is using your daughter, Chief. He's a thief, a deserter, and a killer." Chaitan's stare cut him off like a blade. "And you are the one burning villages under orders," he said evenly. "I know your name, Captain Pierce." The blood drained from Pierce's face. Elijah felt everything shift, like the ground itself had chosen a side. Chayton stepped closer, voice crackling with authority. "If there is truth," he said, "it will be spoken here, now, between both sides." The desert held its breath. Elijah felt Tala's hand find his. He didn't pull away. He stood in the center of two armies, caught between the man he used to be and the man he was trying to become. And for once in his life, he wasn't running. For a long, breathless moment, nobody moved. Elijah stood with one hand clasping Tala's, blood drying on his sleeve, ribs aching, vision pulsing at the edges. Across from him, Captain Pierce's pistol glinted under the moon, trembling just enough to betray a crack in his confidence. Isaiah shifted, jaw tight. He looked from Elijah to Pierce, then to the Apache warriors surrounding them like a living wall of stone. Chayton advanced one slow step forward, bow still drawn. "Truth," he repeated, voice low and sharp. "Here, now." Pierce scoffed, though his voice wavered. "Truth? You savages wouldn't know truth if it—" An arrow thunked into the dirt an inch from his boot. Chayton didn't blink. "Choose your next words carefully, Captain." Elijah swallowed, feeling the desert tighten around him. "Tala has proof," he said hoarsely, "that Pierce and the officials in Redstone planned attacks on Apache settlements, planned to blame her people, planned to take the land." Pierce barked a brittle laugh. "Absurd." Tala limped forward, gripping the leather pouch against her chest. "We heard you," she said, voice trembling but steady. "We read what your men carry. Your names are on the orders." Pierce snapped. "That's classified federal. Classified murder," Elijah cut in. Isaiah's eyes sharpened. "Captain, that true?" Pierce glared at him. "Your job is to obey, soldier." "My job," Isaiah said slowly, "is to make sure I'm not shooting innocent people so you can get promoted." Chayton lowered his bow slightly, studying Isaiah with new interest. Pierce straightened on instinct, face twisting into hard command. "Enough! All of you, step aside. I'm ending this now." He cocked his pistol and aimed at Tala. Elijah moved instantly, throwing himself in front of her. "No!" Tala cried. Pierce fired, but the shot never landed. A second blast cracked through the night, sharp, close, decisive. Pierce jerked, staggered, fell to his knees, then to his side. Behind him, a young soldier, barely 20, hands trembling, still held his smoking gun. Isaiah wheeled on him. "What did you do, boy?" The young soldier's voice broke. "I signed up to serve the territory, not to slaughter women and kids. I ain't killin' for that man." Pierce coughed wetly, rage flickering in his eyes before darkness swallowed them. Everyone froze. Then the sound of galloping thundered over the ridge. Dozens of riders poured into the clearing, lawmen in dusted coats, badges flashing silver. At their head, a square-jawed man with iron-gray hair and a face lined by too many years of seeing the worst. "Marshal Wyatt Hayes," Isaiah muttered. "Well, hell." Hayes dismounted in one smooth motion. "Got a tip you folks were getting ready to reenact Custer," he said dryly. Seems the tip was right. His gaze shifted to Elijah, wounded, swaying, but still standing in front of Tala. "You, Cross?" Hayes asked. Elijah nodded weakly. "Yes, sir." Hayes held out his hand. "You got something for me?" Tala stepped forward, pulling the crumpled contract from her pouch. Hayes unfolded it, lanterns surrounding him as he read. Every line made his jaw grind tighter. "Names from the governor's office," he muttered. 3 federal agents, 2 officers, land deeds. He looked up, face storm dark. "This'll blow the whole territory open." He turned to the soldiers behind Pierce. "Lay down your rifles. You're under my authority until this investigation's done." Isaiah hesitated, then slowly placed his rifle on the ground. His eyes met Elijah's across the clearing, full of apology he didn't know how to say. Chayton stepped closer, still cautious. "Marshal Hayes," he said, "your words better mean something. Our people have heard too many promises." "They'll mean something," Hayes said, "or I'll die making sure they do." For the first time, Chayton inclined his head in real acknowledgement. The tension broke like a bone healed wrong. Over the next hour, soldiers were disarmed, evidence stored, prisoners bound. Hayes talked with Chayton in low, grave tones about witness protection, hearings, land rights. Isaiah helped drag bodies aside, shoulders slumped. Elijah didn't move. His legs buckled finally, and Tala caught him, small arms straining to keep him upright. "Easy," she murmured. "Sit." He sank to the ground, breath shaking. "You okay?" he asked her. A tiny smile pulled at her mouth. "You nearly died 10 times for me. I think the question is yours." He laughed weakly, wincing. "Guess so." A shadow fell over them. Chayton. For a moment, Elijah thought the chief might strike him, deliver judgment the way the desert does, direct and unforgiving. But Chayton knelt instead. "You carried my daughter across the desert," he said. "Took bullets meant for her. You could have left her a dozen times. You did not." Elijah swallowed hard. "I owed a lot." Chayton nodded once. "Then repay it by staying alive." He placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder. "And if you choose, stay with us a while. Our people could use a man who knows both sides of the gun." Tala's fingers slipped into Elijah's slowly, shyly, like she wasn't sure she had the right. Elijah squeezed her hand back. "I'd like that," he whispered. 3 weeks later, Elijah stood at the edge of the new Apache camp, arm bandaged, ribs healing. Children ran past him. Women laughed nearby. Chayton spoke with Hayes near the fire about land protection orders. And Tala walked toward him, sunlight catching in her hair. "You ready?" she asked softly. "For what?" She smiled. "For whatever comes next." He didn't know what tomorrow would be. But for the first time, he wanted to stay long enough to find out. In the end, Elijah Cross's journey was never just about outrunning soldiers or surviving the desert. It was about finding the courage to change the course of his own life. to protect someone who had every reason to fear him, and to prove that a man's past doesn't have to decide his future. Tala's survival, the truth they carried, and the fragile peace they helped secure became more than a victory. They became a quiet reminder that compassion can grow in even the hardest soil. Stories like this reach across generations because they speak to something timeless, the hope that redemption is possible at any age, and that it's never too late to stand on the side of what's right. If this tale touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share a comment below. Your reflections mean the world, especially from those of you who carry a lifetime of wisdom and experience. If you'd like more stories of courage, healing, and second chances, please consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications. Your support helps keep these Western tales alive for all of us who still believe in honor, kindness, and the power of doing the right thing.